So again, I'm John Boyer. I'm with the Public Works Department. I've been with the town for about 18 years, and I've been a staff facilitator for the cemetery committee since about 2010. So I'll go through sort of the whole process that we experienced from the time that we had the citizen come and make the recommendation to the cemetery committee until it was finally adopted this last fall. So for me, the concept of green burial started when Isabel Burney, this local resident, came in. The late Isabel Burney now came into the cemetery committee. And my first impression was that it was a really interesting idea. And then as we've moved through the process, green burial and the adoption of this ordinance has probably been one of the most interesting things that I've done in my entire career. And the reason for that is we sort of started from scratch with green burial. I started as the horticulturist for the town and moved on to management at the Public Works Department. And the cemetery was just one of the things that we managed as part of the Public Works Department, the maintenance of the cemetery. But the practices and the traditional cemetery were already established, so we just pretty much maintained status quo. So we had to start from scratch and go out and interview other green cemeteries, talk to many citizens and get citizen input, answer many questions, and just really educate ourselves on this whole process. So in the process of that, it's sort of influenced my personal feeling about green burials, and I'm 100% all in now. So I've changed my personal philosophy in the course of this research. But another really interesting thing to me was the fact that this started with really a grassroots citizen advocate who came into the cemetery committee and very politely but very persistently came back to the cemetery committee and kept pitching the idea and telling us why we needed to do it. And every time she came back, she had something new to add to the conversation. So it really shows something that started there, and then as a local government, we had to move through our own due diligence and answer the questions. There was some hesitancy from the citizens groups, or for certain individuals and citizens and people, members of the cemetery committee, just really asking questions, but they were questions that needed to be answered. So we had along the way, we had different folks that were sort of the champions of that phase. I was only one part of it, and that was in as my capacity with the Public Works Department. I had to go interview the folks that operate the other cemeteries and the green cemeteries in the region. But the Mayor Leslie Hager-Smith, was absolutely a champion that kept it moving forward in the cemetery committee. Then we did our part, and then there was the final portion that was done by the town attorney, and then finally town council accepted the modification to the ordinance to allow green burial.
Sorry, I pushed you.
So this is Isabel Burney. I don't know where this came from, but yeah, she was a lovely lady, and like I said, she was very persistent coming into the cemetery committee, and she really is the true original champion of green burials at Westview. Every roadblock that was put out there, she had another answer for that roadblock when she came back. So Isabel was truly great. These are two of the organizations that she was sort of affiliated with when she was invited back I think the last time she was invited back to the cemetery committee was in June of 2019. And at that point, she was accompanied by a representative from the Funeral Consumer Alliance of the Virginia Blue Ridge. And I know that they have some other parts to their mission, but in the context of our conversation, it was about affordability for funeral services and for burials. And then you had the environmental, the sustainability side of it. And the Green Burial Council is great resource for obtaining any information you can think about. They've really laid it out in a way that if you want to convert to a green natural cemetery, you can. You have all the information you need there. This is going to be just I won't read through the whole definition, but the broad definition of green burial, natural burial is a way of caring for the dead with minimal environmental impacts and with concern for preservation of the habitat. For our purposes and in our cemetery, our definition is going to be using sustainable and biodegradable products throughout the whole burial process. Okay, this is a good graphic to just show you side by side the differences in the two burial plots. So you've got with conventional burial, you've got and these are not absolutes, so I don't want to offend anybody in the sorry.
One more piece of meat here.
That's good. Okay. So this is just a side by side that will show. Actually, let me go back. There we go. So conventional burial can and often does include chemical embalming. The caskets are often furniture grade quality with hardwoods, metal hardware. There is the use of burial vaults, and the grass is managed with, well, just like a normal landscape would be managed, mowed, periodic fertilizer, some broadleaf. And in Blacksburg, we're sort of minimalist with everything that we do landscape related. So, but you would have the choice of a more prominent headstone in different sections of the cemetery, and the density is greater. With green burial, you're going to have either no embalming or a embalming that is approved by the Green Burial Council and is sort of a short-lived embalming that is approved and is biodegradable, sustainable. The caskets are going to be of like a softwood product or bamboo, wicker, some source like that, that is just going to decompose quickly, or a simple burial shroud. There is going to be no burial vault. That's a big one. There's a lot of concrete that goes into a burial vault, so that is not going to be a part of green burial. This image shows straw and leaves that line the bottom of the grave, and that's just to accelerate the decomposition process. That would be something, it's not in our practice now, but if the family wanted to do that, they certainly could. And then the landscape is sustainably managed.
What?
It would be either little or no mow. It would be very little input or no input as far as fertilizer and chemical application. And then the headstone is going to be, often in green cemeteries, it's going to be just a native stone to wherever the parcel is located. And in our case, we don't have a source for a natural stone, so we just define that as just a simple 12 by 18 flat marker. But something really that is going to blend into the natural landscape is what you're what you're after. We threw this slide in there just to make the comment that green and natural burial, it's not been that long ago that green burial and natural burial was conventional burial. After a little history search will show that during the Civil War, embalming fluids became more popular, and that was so that they could transport the soldiers back home over long distances. And then the burial vaults became popular in early 1900s, and that was just to strictly to mitigate settlement of the ground around it. And then and the reason for that is you had tall, large monuments. As the graves would settle, the monuments would get uneven and tip over and get damaged. So the vaults alleviated that problem. Okay, these are the Green Burial Council. I mentioned that earlier. They're a great resource for green burial, natural burial. They sort of have classified the types of green cemeteries, natural cemeteries, and there's a lot of information there. So if you have any questions beyond this, just go to Green Burial Council, and everything you need to know is there. When Isabel first floated this concept, the town manager at the time had a intern, and that was one of the tasks that the intern was given, much to the surprise of the intern, was to go out and research green burials. And so he brought in a lot of information and did a great job. Pulled in a lot of information from the Green Burial Council and from the National Funeral Directors Association. And the one interesting statistic that he pulled out was that over half of Americans are interested and open to green burial. I mentioned earlier that there's the tenets of green burial have been defined through the Green Burial Council. So they have the best practices, and in Blacksburg, that's what we are following. We adopted exactly what the recommendations from the Green Burial Council into our rules for the Green Cemetery. These are two cemeteries that we went to visit as part of our research. There were others that we did phone interviews, but these were two that were relatively easy to get to. And both of these cemeteries were a great resource. The first, Duck Run, is up. It's up 81 near Wires Cave, exit of 81. So it's not too far of a drive, but it's a beautiful converted farmland. It's got very nice surroundings. When I didn't know when we organized the interview and the site visit up there, I didn't realize that one of the owners' last name was Janelle, and his family's from around here. His grandmother's buried in Westview Cemetery. So he was a completely open book and gave me a lot of really practical advice that you might not find within the Green Burial Council. So he was a great resource and just a really nice guy. And it's a really interesting place. They've got a barn where you can come in and you can build your own casket, and it's stored there, and you use that in the burial process. The other is Forest Rest in Boone's Mill, and again, they're the folks that are there's not that many green burial cemeteries around, and the ones that we do have are very enthusiastic, and they really want to help promote green burial wherever they can. So they were both really great. When the concept first came before the cemetery committee, there was some questions and some hesitancy from some of the members and some of the community members that were interested. And we found the answers to those questions in the FAQ and the Green Burial Council. So it was common questions that other people would naturally ask. But that was part of the due diligence and part of the process is we're going to come back and we're going to answer some of these questions. One of the more common questions was, do green burials contaminate the groundwater? The answer is no. Actually, they're some of the more historic embalming practices can contaminate the groundwater, but they've done a lot of testing and research, and really that's not an issue if done properly. And another one was, will green burials attract animals? There was the image of animals running around the cemetery, burying or uncovering people, and that was a concern. But the barrier for an animal is going to be 18 inches, and we're burying at 3.5 feet, so that's really not a concern. And both of these things, when you go and you talk to the green cemeteries, they kind of laugh because it's just not a problem anywhere in the U.S. So it's not a concern. Settlement is a question, and it's something that you just have to sort of prepare for, because there is settlement. With a traditional grave, you're compacting in layers as you go up, and that's not the same thing with green burials. There's no vault, there's no anything to protect the casket underground, so it's kind of a loose fill, and you mound over top, and then you just plan on that's being part of the process, that you're going to come back and you're going to level the soil. From what I understand from the other cemeteries, a couple times, and it's going to do all the settling that it's going to do. Collapsing of the grave is not really an issue. It's a relatively small void space, so it's generally slow settlement, and collapsing is not an issue. You also don't have, with green natural burial plots, generally you're not going to have heavy equipment that ever runs over. Even a lawnmower is not going to run over these areas. Very low input as far as maintenance. So if you consider the maintenance just being going out a couple times and leveling the spot, it's much less maintenance than a traditional space would be. Okay, these are the classifications of green cemeteries that I was talking about. These come right from the Green Burial Council. They all have their own set of standards, which we'll see in a minute, but at the top is going to be a conservation burial grounds, and really this is going to be in a conservation easement. This is you don't see a lot of these, but there are some, and all of the fees and any profit is going to go back into restoration and conservation of that property. A tier down from that is going to be natural burial grounds, and they're going to adhere to all the same standards. But it's going to be a for-profit cemetery in most situations. And then the third category is hybrid burial grounds, and that's the category that we fit into. And that's when you're trying to intermingle green burials in with your traditional burials. And again, we're going to follow most of the most important tenets of green burial. But since it is within a traditional burial space, you're not going to be able to do the environmental impact studies and limit maintenance. All that maintenance is already being done. We're not changing anything there. So we fit squarely into the hybrid burial grounds category. If you can see all of the criteria, but it just this is on the website for Green Burial Council. It just goes down the list of all biodegradable products are used throughout the whole process. There's the establishment of an endowment. We do have that at Westview. I can't read on the screen what these are, but they are out there if you're interested. Okay. Okay, so when we first started the research on this, we we went down the road is, can we intermingle natural and green burials in with our traditional burials? And you don't have to ask too many questions before you find out that that's generally not a good idea. There's different expectations for the people that want to have a green burial and the ones that want to have a traditional burial. There's different dimensions to the plots, so it's best if you can find another area that is not intermingled in with the traditional burials. Luckily for us, we did have a spot at Westview that was vacant. This was an old, well, this was part of the maintenance lot. The original public works lot was this whole property that includes this and then the buildings above it that you see. When we did the new cemetery building, we did redid all the site work around here, and we were able to sort of consolidate our operations all on the upper corner within that gravel lot, and which left this open space below it. It just hadn't been claimed yet. If we'd left it for long enough, it probably would have been claimed as part of the regular cemetery, but at this point it hadn't been. So we just so happened we did have a way to get around that intermingling of the two cemeteries. This is all on its own. We have some plans to put a mixed border around this area, and we're going to see. I mean, right now we've got this whole area all the way out to the road that could be devoted to green burial, but for now we are just operating in stages. So we just opened up 2 phases of the green burial site, and we're trying to sell the plots sort of from the back, working our way out. So these are the cemetery rules that we had to go through and add to our rules and regs for the cemetery to allow green burial. Embalming not mentioned anywhere in the rules, so that was one where we're saying you have to either use no embalming for the green burial section, or an embalming fluid that is approved by the Green Burial Council. The vault, it specifically says that no wooden receptacles are allowed without a vault, and this is exactly opposite. No vaults are required or allowed, and there's restrictions on the type of casket. And then the depth for the traditional cemetery, it's the depth is at 5 feet, and for the natural cemetery, for the green cemetery, we are at 3.5 feet, and that's just to that's at a level that is going to increase airflow and accelerate decomposition. So one accelerates, and one is the traditional is generally about just preservation. So much different. The markers, again, I think I'd mentioned that what we would like to work towards is, as we've seen in other locations, which is just a natural fieldstone with maybe just a name inscribed on top. We don't have a supplier or anywhere to point folks to for that now, so we currently are just requiring a simple 12 by 18 flat marker, and it's just going to be placed on the grave site. There's not going to be any concrete that anchors that into place, so that's still much different. At some point, if we had a supplier of a more natural marker, then we'd like to go that route. We did want the burials to be coordinated through a licensed funeral home. Our staff is not equipped and not prepared to place bodies and that type of thing. So that's going to be up to the funeral home. So they will still be involved. See, that just repeats what I've said. Caskets and shroud must be made from naturally biodegradable materials. Fasteners and handles must be made from material which is biodegradable and under burial conditions, which rules out metal hinges and fasteners and nails. So there's a little bit of creativity to find a casket that is put together with all biodegradable fasteners, but they do exist. They're out there and available. No hardwood caskets with a stain finish. And let's see. Yeah, burial shrouds made of biodegradable material. Okay, all right. Okay, and I think that's just repeating some of the things that I've said. Well, I think there's a couple new things in there. The plastic flowers, which are typically put in the traditional cemetery, we will require just natural flowers to be put in the green cemetery. Um, we don't want any personal items that are not biodegradable to be put in the casket. So really, we're just back to that. Everything throughout the whole process should be biodegradable in this portion of the cemetery. Okay, I think that about covers it. All right, so I am not an absolute expert on green burial. I've not been at this that long, but I'll answer any questions that you might have. I know you.
Two, actually.
Sure.
One of them is, why does a green burial plot have to be bigger than a regular one? I would think it would be smaller, not bigger.
Well, sure. Why do the dimensions have to be larger for a green burial as opposed to a traditional burial? And that is, so the burial plots are still fairly small. We've added a foot on either side to make it a little bit easier to dig around. That's basically what it gets to. You know,
Right.
no, that's not part of it. It's just that when you've got the plots laid out into a grid, when you have a cemetery vault and you're digging a grave with a piece of machinery next to a vault, it's a little bit more forgiving. If you touch it with the machine, it's not that big of a deal. But we want, with green burials, where it's actively decomposing burial site, we don't want to run the risk of digging into that with any kind of machinery.
Questions of, is this environmentally preferable to cremation?
Okay, so why is it less? Repeat that again.
Why is it environmentally a better thing to go this way than to do cremation?
Okay, and that's cremations take a lot of input. They take a lot of fossil fuels to in the cremation process, and this does not. Yes.
This feels like a really morbid question. I hate to bring this up, but
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine there's a timing element to it. If you're doing a green burial, you would probably need to do it quite quickly. So are there, like, is there certain situations where a green burial just wouldn't be possible because of a delay between the time of death and?
I don't think so. I mean, the funeral home is still going to handle it the same way. They can store for I don't know the exact time period that they can store, but it's several days that they could store it, and then take it out of cold storage and then do the green burial. And that's another reason that we would involve the funeral home. I think we had the purple. I think you've raised sheet. It's the same as our other plots. So if you go to the website, I think it's there's $800 to $900 for the purchase of the plot, and then there's a cost to open and close the grave. There's a different cost for residents and people from out of town, but I think the last cost was $800 to $900, something like that. Carol? Oh, good, good.
As its traditional casket and vault period. So about a quarter of the carbon emissions equivalent.
Okay, okay. So it's better, but right, but just not, yeah. And that's where I was at. I was, would go the cremation route until I was involved with this and decided green burial's better. Mr. Ripper,
What is the final surface
the final surface,
after the thing?
it's gonna be a very low maintenance grass surface. Families come out and put a wildflower mix out there sometimes. So what our plan is as the cemetery is built out and what was recommended by some of the other green cemeteries, we're gonna keep our equipment off of it, but we might go out with a string trimmer a couple times a year and just knock down the grass. But other than that, it's gonna have a very natural look to it, very low input as far as maintenance goes.
Can be really close together. A lot, but the lots are right beside without damaging it.
Well, that's one reason that we're trying to. What's that? Oh, he had asked why the plots are so close together, or is that right?
Let's say they are close,
Yeah.
which means when you dig a lot.
How do you dig around those? Yeah. Very carefully dig around those. But that's the reason that we're trying to sequence the sale of the lots so that we know that we can get to them. We don't want to, we're going to sell the lots in a way that we can dig the graves on undisturbed ground. We're not going to be on top of other graves while we do it. And that's the main reason that we're going to do that. Yes, ma'am. If the digging is done with machinery, yes, it is done with the small excavator or a backhoe. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm old enough, I built my grandpa's grave. Can we dig for family members do the digging ourselves? Because I think that's part of the development, at least it was for me.
Yeah.
Then the second question is, do you need a casket? Because, or and if you do you have a certain size? Because it seems to me would collapse eventually. Can
It would
you
warm.
wrap someone in your shroud without a casket?
Yeah. So that question was, can you dig your own grave? And as long as it adhered to the same standards as we would, the same depth and dimensions, we could work with families there. We would have to, since they are so close together and so well defined, we'd have to supervise, and we would have to outline exactly where the space is. So there still would be some associated cost, I imagine, but that is a very good question. We've not gone that far down the road. That's not been a question so far. Yes. Yeah, if you had your own open parcel near your home, are you allowed to or any vacant parcel that you own, can you, I guess, start a cemetery? Um, that I would hesitate. I would hesitate to even offer answer. I don't know about that one. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Legally, not that I'm aware of. I mean, the only thing that we had to do to open our green section of our cemetery was just go through the modification of the ordinance and adopt a new set of rules. So other than that was all. So I can't imagine there would be anything else. As long as you follow the same documentation that you would have to do for death certificate and all that kind of stuff. Yes, sir.
Bought into the green burial services, and if so, have they established any price lists yet?
I don't know that. So that have any local funeral homes bought into the green or the green burial service? And we have had loose conversations that there are some caskets that are softwood that would meet the criteria. I don't know how many options there are out there, but they have at least the two local funeral homes have said that, you know, they do have the ability to offer a casket that would be for green burial.
Shrouds. You can use one shroud.
I would assume shrouds are used in other burial services, so that go through the funeral home. So I would think so. Yes, ma'am. What? Sorry for that. What was that circumstance? What example? Uh-huh. It would be both. I think both would have a stake in that. For us, what our cemetery staff is going to do, they're just going to show you where your options are as far as the location goes. And they're going to actually make the sale, and then they'll do the opening and closing. So everything, if the specifics that would go through the funeral home would be the type of casket, that type of thing, and that would be a conversation with them. We would have nothing to do with that. You are buying a specific plot that is, and I mentioned that we're working our way from the back end. So at this time, you're not going to have a lot of options. We're going to tell you exactly the few that you can choose from. You would you could purchase your plot ahead, and others have done so already. Um, yeah, that's a good question. We have positioned it. I don't know if we can go back to. In that case, we do have an access between the two, so it would be possible. Are you all hearing that rumbling out there? I can't. Okay. I think it stopped. So you could reach from the perimeter. Either end you could reach. I think you could get about two wide. So the first block is the one that we're going to sell first. And so again, those are issues that we don't have all the answers for yet, but I'm sure we'll solve that problem as it forward. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, if you have drugs in your system for cancer treatment at the time of your death, would that have an impact on groundwater? Well, yes, you would. They don't, I mean, and if you're going specifically by the criteria, it doesn't specify that you can't have any medicine or chemicals in your body. It just goes as far down as the materials used and what is put in the casket. So it would be whether it could contaminate the surrounding soil or groundwater, I don't know, but it would still meet all of the criteria for a green burial. Let's see, I think
Is that little plot that's on the other side of Roanoke? I think it's Southwind Memorial Garden.
Southview Memorial Garden.
Yeah, Southview. Is that available as a potential green burial site?
That is not. That is sort of a unique situation. That was okay, and I forgot to repeat the question, but he was asking about on the other side of East Roanoke Street, we have another town operated cemetery called Southview Memorial Gardens. And would that be available for burials? And the answer to that is no. Is we the town took over maintenance of that cemetery. That was the cemetery for two of the local African American churches. And the way the rules are for that is you have to go through the churches to get a burial there. And right now it's so built out in that cemetery. Um, I think there's 8 spots left, and some of those may have been spoken for. So, yeah, to the general public, nothing is available over there. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Dave and I on Sunday went and talked to our priest about this, and we were interested to find that he's totally on board with the idea of grief burial.
Yeah.
And we wanted to know, because usually they have a memorial service for you about 2 weeks after you're gone, but with grief
Mhm.
burial, that's not really practical. But he said it can be a perfectly acceptable solution to conduct a graveside service right after the death. And
Yeah.
then have the memorial service a couple of weeks later.
Yeah,
And he's
sure.
very supportive of the idea. And I was wondering if other clergy have weighed in on this with their views about this.
No, they've not. After the initial hesitancy with green burial, I've had nothing but positive comments. Now that's probably because it's the people that are interested in green burial. But so she had asked if other clergy, other churches had weighed in on green burial, and we've not had any conversations with the churches about that.
We were surprised we're not surprised, but we were happy to find how supportive our own priest was of the idea.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
great.
others would be too.
Yeah, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That was he had asked about the regulations behind a columbarium, and I don't know. We have cremation burial sites currently in our cemetery. We had thought about the potential of some sort of scatter garden closer to the road. That is something that had been brought up by the cemetery committee over the years, is establishing a scatter garden, and we're all for that. So that may be a possibility, but not that I'm aware of. I don't think there would be any regulation that prevent you from doing that.
One more question.
Well, that's fun. Yes, ma'am. Know that there's other than around the perimeter, and we already have plans to sort of establish a perimeter. I've not seen that at other cemeteries, just because it's going to complicate the maintenance and the surrounding sites if you put a tree or a shrub. So it's typically, you might see perennial flowers, you might see grass. This is all like native mixed wildflowers, those type of things, but probably not the best situation for planting a tree. Now there like one of the other cemeteries that we brought up here, the forest, which one was that? The one down in Boone's Mill. They offer a burial with a tree, but they are a large, expansive property, and they're not going to be so close to the plot right next to them. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we have. She had asked if we had sold any plots, and we have. That would be with our cemetery staff. There's usually somebody on site most of the time. Well, no, at the right here, the town cemetery building. That's where the sales are made. So we've had many folks to come in and visit the site, and I think have plans to purchase a plot, but haven't done so yet. But they come in, our cemetery staff can explain the whole process and give you some literature to take home, consider. Sure. No, you could sell, I mean, you could trade with another individual if you wanted to. You can't, we don't buy plots back. But okay.
Why would the town purchase them for $300 and the town is selling them $900? Why would the town not buy this back at the original cost so they can make a profit?
Oh, well, we're just not into we're just maintenance of the cemetery. We're not in it to make a profit.
Taxes
Yeah.
or to make profits, but they just watching this.
Maybe that's not been brought up.
Sorry to interrupt.
Maybe not.
John needs to get going and you
Oh,
got
it's fine.
so many
It's fine.
fabulous questions. I know we also want to leave time because we have a local casket maker here. I feel like what you all are doing is helping us build an FAQ. So
Yeah, a lot of great questions.
You
Yeah.
didn't, well, we're recording this, so I also work for the town, so we're gonna take these questions and probably build out an FAQ. If you don't have a chance to ask a question of John right now, we're gonna make some little slips of paper available here that will help us further build that out, if that's all right with folks. If we can transition to thanking our speaker.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Any of these questions, feel free to contact me at Public Works and I can try to run down some of the answers. But it's been very nice speaking to you all today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I just wanted to add, there weren't any questions in the chat, but the one comment was sincerely appreciate the town's research and commitment to the green burial and option in Westview. So I think that's it for attitude. Thank you for you being here.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Green burial caskets. Yeah, actually, if you just. Ma'am, that's so hard.
Ma'am, got a question that real quick?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do is make a comment. Somebody was asking about private green burial on your own property. And I looked up, it says, in Virginia, it is lawful for property owners to have burials on their own land, and a casket is not required.
That's good information. That'll help us build our city. It may be.
You might already do that.
All right, guys, let me introduce myself. I'm Brent Strange. I own Green Hollow Woodworking out of Craig County, Virginia. We're a small family company. We live in Simmonsville, and we build our caskets on our farm there. I was really thankful that Mr. Boyer and Sustainable Blacksburg gave me the opportunity to just introduce myself, my company to you guys. They do not endorse me. I'm just a local business. I saw this on the library website and asked them if I could please just talk about it. What we do is we build Green Burial Council certified caskets. We're 3-leaf certified, which is the highest level of certification they offer. Our caskets are 100% soft woods, either pine or poplar. We don't use any metal fasteners. All our glues are non-toxic. We only buy timber from local sawyers that don't buy from clear cuts. So if you purchase a casket from us, the tree that was harvested was either a tree company gave our sawyer the tree, or they got it from their fence line clearing business. They're not going to go out to Floyd or surrounding counties and purchase lumber from clear cuts and just leave a scar on our mountains. So we get the timber from our local sawyers. They kiln dry it there. We purchase it rough. We take it back to our farm. We mill it to dimension, and then We use hand tools for final smoothing and for the joints. Depending on your casket material, you'll have either a box joint or a dovetail joint that joins the pieces together. So those are one of the two strongest joints in woodworking. And then we use glue just because it's kind of belt and suspenders, right? Want to make sure that casket does never come apart. Other thing we offer that's unique is our caskets have a framed floor. So when you purchase a casket from us, we frame out the floor first, like you would a home with joists, and then we lay the floor of the casket on top of that, and the sides cover that frame. So you're guaranteed a very secure, sturdy casket. The Green Barrel Council requires us to only use softwoods, which I'm all for. So it's for our region, that's pine or poplar. Let's save those hardwoods for a buffet or a dining table or a chest that you would donate to your family members down the road. Leave them a heritage. I know growing up, my great grandmother had a hutch made out of cherry, and that's something that I touched every single day until I got married. So I could remember her, and it was really great. So something along those lines, the caskets, we want the focus of the service to be the loved one and not the piece of furniture that they're in, if I can be delicate about that. One of the first funerals I ever attended, I was in my late 20s, and I was the speaker, but I didn't know it. My great aunt had signed me up to speak for my great grandmother, and I got to the funeral, and we're in the receiving line with my wife, and I look at the program, and I'm listed as the main speaker, and nobody told me. All right, so that was absolutely one of the most terrifying moments of my entire life, to stand in front of a whole group of people, most of whom I did not know, and talk about my great grandmother. Hopefully, Nanny was happy with what she got, but she got the best I had. So as I was growing up, and then later on as family members continued to pass, the funerals just seemed less and less personal. There were more and more layers of complexity between my family member passing away and then us as a family laying them to rest. My dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 2021. We had 6 weeks from the time he was diagnosed until the time he died. Of those 6 weeks, only 2 of them where he was able to make decisions because of the cancer metastasized so quickly. So the first thing he asked us to do, he asked me to make his casket. And it was an easy yes, absolutely. I've never done it before, but I figured I could. So I went to a sawyer, I got the lumber, I milled it, I built my dad's casket. My dad died at 5:30 a.m. We had his funeral at 2 p.m. the same day. We live in Craig, which is awesome. So we were able to bury my dad on his property. I put my dad in his casket. I shut the lid. I carried his casket across the creek with my buddies, and we put him to rest. That funeral opened my eyes to how very comforting and intimate a green burial can be. We're in a unique position in Craig. Not everybody has the opportunity, where we live, but it does give you a chance to be with your loved one and to not have to deal with anybody else. For my company, we make you 3 promises. If you buy one of our caskets, we will absolutely be honest with you. If it's not in our lane, if the time frame doesn't work, I'm not going to lead you on. I will tell you I can't make it. Please call somebody else, and I'll recommend someone. The second promise I make is I'll be as transparent as possible. If you ask me about my prices, I will absolutely tell you what my raw materials cost, so that you're not this is what you're paying for. And we'll listen to you. What are your goals? We only offer one design. It's like Henry Ford with the Model T. You can have any color you want as long as it's black. So you can have any of our caskets that you want as long as they're pine or poplar. If you really are insistent on a choice, then we can let you choose not to have it finished. We have a shop-made finish of beeswax, citrus oil, and linseed oil. If you really, really, really want to customize your casket, that's awesome. We will leave off the finish. For children and infants, my family knows firsthand the pain of that and how devastating that loss is and how confusing that time can be. We work closely with those families, and those caskets we do paint white with a milk paint. It's non-toxic. The Green Barrel Council approved it. It's the Real Milk Paint Company is who we use. And so those are the only caskets that we paint white. If you were to ask us for a blue or a green, we'd say we love you, but we just can't, we can't fulfill that. But here's a company that does. My information is here on the table. If you have any questions, you can text, call, or email me. And if, we'd love to talk to you about what we do. Thank you very much.
Green Burial is a nonprofit starting a natural burial ground in Floyd, Virginia. So that's, yeah, sorry, Blue Ridge Green Burial. So that's all we have. I think Brent is maybe around for a little bit if you have questions for him.
Looks like a question for Brent, and again, we were so sorry we had to cut the question short, but I knew we wanted Brent. We've got two clipboards here. You didn't get a chance to ask your question, just help us build up fantastic FAQ that we then post to the town quest.
And if you all don't know, this is Carol Davis, the town sustainability manager, so we work very closely with her. She, I'm sure, knows a lot of. Oh, what's that? Yes, so, okay, thank you all for coming. Should like.